right, good morning, karibu sana. It is the third day of February 2025. Yani Januari ilikwisha hivyo hivyo. 34 days into this year, about 331 days left. Tunaweza anza countdown ya Christmas. My name is Freddy Ndimuli. This is the Morning Cafe.
My name is Anno Dida, karibu sana. Thank you so much for choosing us. It is the month of love. Anza kupanda maua sasa hivi. Manake 14th will be in 2 hours time. And also Arsenal yesterday winning.
You know, if I could, I would wear my Arsenal jersey today to work. I think
it was an option,
people should actually do that. Yes. If you have that option, wear your Arsenal jersey to work today.
Today is a beautiful day here.
I tell you. A quick look at the dailies this morning, and this is an overall look on our dailies. MPs tussle over 10 billion shillings road kitty. That's a People Daily.
Killer squads back. That's the Standard.
Uhuru era COVID mess could cost state 8 billion shillings. That's on the Star.
People Business Daily, Treasury, CBK split over rival exchange for bonds.
On Taifa Leo, aanza kupanda mlima telezi. Nani huyo?
And on the Daily Nation, Abductions, the weak links.
Yes, these are the main discussions locally, and we'll be back to take a look at them later on. On State of the Nation this morning, Philip Kisia, leadership and governance expert, Danso Mungatana, Senator Tana River, and Dr. Barak Muluka, strategic communications advisor, starting at 6:30. You don't want to miss that discussion. Later on, Monday Blitz, of course. Hey, Arsenal's heroics will definitely be part of this conversation. Manchester United, meanwhile, walikuwa nyumbani to some small team called Crystal Palace, wakakanyagwa 2 bila jibu.
No wonder wanapiga kelele.
Wanapiga kelele kama sahi, by the way, we can't even stay sane here because watu wa Man U wanapiga kelele. Monday Blitz, Freda Rocho and Shutterboy will be in studio alongside Innocent Mutiso, former Harambee Stars player. That's at 8.
And later on, we'll be talking matters in Nyanza. We'll be going to Nyanza, unlocking Nyanza's economic potential. And the theme is investment opportunities for global growth. This will be happening from 6th to 8th of this month. And President William Ruto will be the chief guest of this event. So why Nyanza? We'll be talking about this with Ken Muhochi, that is the Vice Chair Marketing Committee, Nyanza International Investment Conference, and Rose Osoro, Chairperson Outcomes Committee, Nyanza International Investments Conference. All
right, so if you want to know or learn about opportunities in Nyanza, this is a conversation that you do not want to miss. So let's now take a look at what people are talking about in the region, and we start off in Uganda. This is the new vision.
Congo crisis, what next?
Yes.
Now the UN says 1,600 UN staff evacuated from Goma to Entebbe, and I think 700 people have been killed so far, and that's according to the UN report released on Saturday.
So both Rwanda and Uganda are receiving quite a number of refugees, those who have been displaced from the fighting in Goma. Those two countries, Rwanda and Uganda, are very close to that borderline there. The other big story that's happening in Uganda is this one here. Museveni reacts to Supreme Court verdict. So the Supreme Court of Uganda actually declared that it is illegal to try or arraign civilians before a court-martial, because that's a military court, because that's where Kizza Besigye was arraigned, because in front of a court-martial. Now Museveni says, Nya Mushiki, this court-martial has really been helping us, so you cannot say it is illegal to arraign civilians there. It is a big discussion in Uganda, and many people want to see, will Museveni really stick to what the Supreme Court says, or will he push through with a court-martial? Still in Uganda, the Daily Monitor, yes, that discussion there, Museveni versus the law. On different pages, President Museveni's reaction to Supreme Court's ruling on trial of civilians in military courts has attracted criticism from lawyers who think the president's comments are tantamount to attempts to sabotage the doctrine of separation of powers. So this is the kind of discussion we also have in Kenya. Does the executive have too much influence on the judiciary or not? So when the president answers back on a Supreme Court ruling, what does it mean? That's a big story there. I was looking for what happens to the Goma crisis on this front page, and I can't see. There's a special report on why is stomach cancer on the rise in Western. Revelers give a past distinction after maiden concert. And schools keeping the guard up over Mpox as new terms start. Yani sasa ndo wanafungua shule, February.
They're chopping live. Uganda.
In Uganda.
Results they're releasing in January. All right. Tanzania, mwananchi vyama njia panda, na misimamo ya vyama na hofu ya kutoaminiana usaliti vyatajwa sababu inayoweza kukwamisha vyama vya upinzani kuungana. Mchambuzi afafanisha na ngamia kupenya kwenye tundu la sindano.
Okay.
Okay.
Other quick highlights there.
Tamko la Trump laanza kuuma watumishi walia mshahara. And remember, there are state-owned, or let me say US, things like USAID. How do we put it?
Yes. NGOs
that are linked
that are funded.
That are funded by the US government. A lot of people, they have lost their jobs. They are on a 3-month compulsory unpaid leave.
Yes.
So I think that is what they mean here when they say that tamko la Trump laanza kuuma watumishi.
And if you see this happening in Tanzania, in Kenya too, it will definitely have an effect, because many NGOs locally are indirectly funded by the US through the USAID. And most of them are actually centered in Nairobi. Yes.
Malori kufungwa vifaa vya kufuatilia mwendo. Maybe you can...
speed governors.
Okay.
So that's Wananchi in Tanzania. The other paper in Tanzania, that's a Citizen, talks about Tanzania in the crossfire amid raging DRC conflict. So you've seen in Uganda also, they're talking about the same. Tanzania too is reeling from the effects of the fighting in Goma. The ongoing conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo is not only taking a toll on human lives, but also severely affecting Tanzania's economy, particularly its vital transport and trade sectors. Remember that Tanzania shares a lake border with the DRC, and hapo kunakuwa na shida mingi. Kuna double impact. In addition to the tragic loss of life, experts warn that the conflict's impact on Tanzania's economy is already being felt. Available data shows that the DRC is Tanzania's largest foreign client for Dar es Salaam port, which serves as a critical transit hub for goods bound for Central and Southern Africa. So the port in Dar es Salaam is reeling from the effects of the fighting in Goma. They actually give a rough of just how much cargo passes through the Dar es Salaam port. To Congo DRC, about 4.1 million tons. To Zambia, 2.2 million tons. Rwanda, 1.7 million. Malawi, 0.5. Burundi, 0.3. Uganda, 0.06 million tons. Of course, Uganda heavily relies on Kenya for the Kenyan port for its own cargo. So this is the effect it has, the fighting in Congo has, to Tanzania at least. What's next after US government blacklists 300 Tanzanians in Trump crackdown? For Kenyans, they are about 1 million. 1,400,000. Tanzanians were only 300. Wageni waendi kule kwa Trump. All right. Pale chini, health experts sound alarm of a surge in advanced HIV disease. Interesting. Now, you see this, especially the HIV issue around East Africa. A lot of the funding for ARVs, treatment and management of HIV, is funded by the US through the WHO and through USAID. So now with that pooled, and then there's something like this, an advanced HIV disease surge, what will happen? That's a very serious threat there. And what banks minting trillions in profits means for the economy, that's for the banking industry in Tanzania as well. So the Congo crisis still remains a big discussion across the region, both in Tanzania and Uganda. In Kenya, we also have our own different angle. Itasaidia ama itaumiza baba, because we're counting down to the 15th of this month. Why the 15th? Shine throughout the day, highs of 27 degrees Celsius. And as far as precipitation is concerned, no chance of rain in Kisii today. Nyaringita litudanganya alisema in Kisii huwa kunanyesha throughout.
Nyaringita is always receiving praise.
Leo hakuna mvua huko. What about in Nyeri?
13 degrees in Nyeri. It will be sunny throughout with a little bit of cloud cover throughout the day. Highs of 24 degrees, lows of 13, of course. No chances of rain, precipitation 0 millimeters. All
right, that's as far as Nyeri is concerned. We take a look at Nakuru. And Nakuru, yes, 14 degrees Celsius as we speak, promises to also get as hot as 26 degrees Celsius, sunny throughout the day, just a bit of cloud cover, kidogo tu, hata huko precipitation, 0. Hakuna mvua leo, kila mahali. Wacha tuone huko juu Bungoma, huko kina Papa wa Roma.
16 degrees as at now, feels like 15. Highs of 28. There's a little bit of precipitation there, 5%.
Yes, in the afternoon, a bit of rain, kidogo too, but at least the morning is
a little bit sunny. Oh, zero.
Zero.
Yeah.
So hakuna mvua hata huko. Finally, let's take a look at Nairobi to see if at all you'll need your brolly today. 17 degrees Celsius, sunny throughout the morning, a bit of cloud cover later in the day, highs of 27. And you've realized this is across the country, highs of 27 degrees with no rain. Zero. So even in Nairobi, no rain today. Across the country, no rain. We've not even taken a look at the coast, but we don't expect any rainfall from that direction either. So that's the weather forecast for most parts of the country today. Let's take a look at the traffic situation in Nairobi this morning. And yes, you can see Thika Road is where the problem is. I'm trying to see any other area that there is a problem. Already we can identify that sections of Thika Road are building up slowly around this area here. Wanahitaji hii mahali hapa Allsops. Technology sometimes can fail us. Asubuhi on a Monday. Yes. So hapa mbona inakataa?
Ni Man United.
Ni watu wa Manu.
Manu.
Hapo Allsops could have a problem as you head towards town. That's where you get the interchange from Outer Ring Road into Thika Road. There's a problem there, a stretch of yellow heading towards KCA University, meaning that if you're coming from areas like Kasarani, I almost say Udhiru's on the other side, Githurai, you might find that you're taking some time there. Of course, this area kawaida pale Pangani interchange, nothing to worry about. Hiyo ni kawaida. Kini kuna barabara nyingine hapa naangalia. This is what barabara ile inatoka huko kwa Mama Lucy Hospital huko Umoja, inaitwaje? Kangundo Road. Just before you get to Outer Ring Road, it is red on both sides of the road. So guys who are leaving Nairobi towards areas like Kayole and Njiru using that road, there's a problem there, and getting towards town, a problem as well. So that's as far as Thika Road and areas on the other side of town are concerned. Let's exit from there and we take a look at Jogoo Road. Yes, Jogoo Road iko hapa. It's building nicely once you get from Buruburu, this stretch here around Makadara towards Botella. There's a bit of red there. Once you get towards town, not that bad because areas like Machakos, Haile Selassie Avenue, can see bits of yellow there, not really red. So in town, it's not so bad today. That's the traffic situation in Nairobi this morning.
All right, let's take a look at the quote of the day.
Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken.
All right, let's come back and take a look at the dailies in depth. All right, and we start off with the People Daily this morning. The big story there on the front page, MPs tussle over 10 billion shilling roads kitty. The National Assembly now wants the Senate to plead with governors to withdraw a petition to unlock stalemate to fund allocations to counties. Of course, everyone wants to dip their hands into the roads levy.
Yeah.
It's a kitty of about 10 billion shillings. Governors wanasema hapana, hata sisi lazima tukuwe na hiyo pesa. Yet the National Assembly, you see, MPs are also interested in having this money as part of the CDF, NGCDF, ndo waunde barabara kwa constituency. Na governors wanasema hapana, hiyo kazi mtuachie. Mutangangana, hiyo by the way wacha wasumbuane. Bora tuone development. Kindiki campaigns in Mount Kenya region. Yes, the Deputy President has been busy, up and down, moving and speaking quite authoritatively in Mount Kenya region, trying to counter the effects of his predecessor, Rigathi Gachagua. Will he be successful? Well, time will tell. The art of conserving mangroves is a special report on the inside pages of the People Daily. An unknown persons threaten survivors of abductions. Huh? All right, so people who have survived abductions are claiming that they're receiving threats from unknown people. wanaambia mnyamaze.
Tutafinya.
Tutakufinya. Vile tulikufinya, tutakufinya tena. Pale juu, Ruto allied lawmakers change tune and call for a review of SHA. Do you believe them?
Wanaongea tu huko juu sasa, hawako in the house.
Yes, very interesting. Some of them have been making very serious claims. I don't know. But
some are making serious claims, some are still drumming up support for SHA wakiwa kule nyumbani.
Kuna wale wamesema maybe we should relook at it. But pali kuna moshi, hapakosi moto. Yes. Right, that's the People Daily.
The Standard killer squad's back. And the Standard says President William Ruto rode to power on the pledge that human rights and justice will be respected. However, 2 years down the line, the killing of abducted protesters shows that promise was merely words. Extrajudicial killings have returned, and in a puzzling manner. Of course, remember those that were abducted are claiming that their lives are in danger, of course. And for this newspaper, they say that unlike previous abductions that targeted online critics of the government, none of the Mlolongo Four had a prominent online presence. These 4 individuals who reportedly knew one another were abducted on the same day. Tragically, 2 of them have since been found lifeless, their mutilated bodies lying on slabs at the Nairobi funeral home. All right, remember, 2 are yet to be found. Another top story there, payslips politics. In 2027, it will be about the money, and that story is on page 5 of the Standard. They say with up to 45% of their earnings taken before they even see their paycheck, workers are left grumbling. Payslip holders are 3 million, and each of them has influence of at least 2 people. That's 9 million people who have a personal issue with Dr. William Ruto, and that is former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, quoted there by the Standard. On the top strip of the Standard, we see trouble ahead. The U.S. suspends vital drugs to cancer. And the U.S. has suspended the supply of ARVs and essential drugs to the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority as the new directives on foreign aid funding by Washington start to bite. Now, remember, our Ministry of Health last week said that no need to worry for Kenya. We have enough supply for the next 6 months. So we'll see how that goes. And governors issued directive on NSSF rates. That story is on page 19 of the Business. And on the Standard newspaper, we see Trump hits partners with new taxes and new faces that keep Kenya's athletics alive. That story is on page 30 of this newspaper.
Right.
That's the Standard.
We move on now to the Business Daily. Treasury CBK split over rival exchange for bonds. You have the physical paper here. They say that the Treasury has broken ranks with the central bank by supporting a new exchange for trading government securities that will rival the Nairobi Securities Exchange. So the Treasury is backing a new privately owned platform, the East African Bond Exchange, EABX, which allows investors to trade Treasury bonds outside the Nairobi bourse. So what kind of effect will it have on the NSC? That's what many people are questioning. The other story there on the front page of the Business Daily, they talk about why macadamia tycoons are in auctioneers' crosshairs. They do have 2 of those tycoons there, Peter Munga and Patrick Wainaina, whose caricatures there are on the front page. Auctioneers are knocking on the doors of billionaire businessman Peter Munga and former Thika Town MP Patrick Wainaina, chasing unpaid loans linked to their macadamia processing companies. And the quick highlights on the ticker there on the Business Daily, PSC, SRC locked in tough war over public servants' PACs. An initiative to control allowances paid in the public service is at stake as the PSC, that's the Public Service Commission, and the SRC, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, fight over who has a mandate to determine pay. Other stories, hackers sell business owners' IDs, phone details on dark web. This has caused quite some jitters across, because unaenda tu pale, unaangalia biashara, una Google kidogo, you just type and search, then unagundua, kumbe, jamaa, maybe my wife is actually a director somewhere and you had no clue. Yeah, that's a big story there. KQ gets approval to service foreign aircrafts. And finally, COMESA watchdog probes Airtel money hidden charges. Those are the stories on the front page of the Business Daily this Monday.
Daily Nation abductions, the weak link. As Kenya grapples with increased cases of enforced disappearances, it is emerging that lack of a specific law to tackle the crime is worsening an already dire situation. The legal gap exists because Nairobi has yet to ratify the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances. And that story is on page 3, 4, and 5. And down here, they give a glance and they say the legal gap. There is no national legislation that criminalizes or penalizes enforced disappearances, nor effective measures in place to prevent abductions. Safe haven for rogue police. Nairobi funeral home accused of helping rogue security agents to get away with cold-blooded murders. Now, isn't it quotes? See, mambo yetu. Voices of reason, senior clerics say, and this safe haven for rogue police, this was, I remember, was said by Kalonzo Musyoka yesterday. Voices of Reason senior clerics say the abductions raise serious questions on the government's commitment to protect human rights. That was said yesterday by Ole Sapit. And independent probe activists are now demanding a transparent investigation into all cases of enforced disappearances. All right. Kule chini tunaona hospitals start denying teachers and police officers services over unlimited medical premiums. Now, teachers and police officers are staring at a health crisis as hospitals start denying them services after the insurance provider failed to pay claims running into billions of shillings. Reports indicate the Teacher Service Commission, the National Police Service, and the Kenya Prison Service have not released funds to both private and public hospitals for medical services offered to their employees. Wananyang'anywa lunch, hawapewi capitation, hawalipiwi claims.
Sad state of affairs.
29 billion Kenyan shillings, the National Treasury says. There is a contract with the Mineta Administrative Kenya Limited there. And down here again, we see ODM plots to counter Ruto's Western forays. And ODM Deputy Party Leader Godfrey Osotsi says they will roll out aggressive activities to strengthen the party, adding that ties with UDA will not be part of their agenda. Wamekataa mambo ya broad-based government.
ODM are suffering a serious identity crisis. Sasa wajui, do we support the president? Do we oppose him in certain areas? Wengine wanasema we are backing him for re-election, lakini sasa unasikia we are going to Western. Sababu president alikuwa huko. Popularize UDA, sasa sisi tutarudi huko kuharibu.
All right, there is a sad story here. College student, her unborn child stabbed to death. Now, on January 30, Judith Atieno had a telephone conversation with her daughter. The two spoke for a few minutes. During the call, her daughter, Cheryl Awino, informed her that she was having a stubborn headache. Little did the mother and daughter know that this would be their last conversation. 2 days later, Miss Atieno received a telephone call that left her devastated. Awino, a student at MWERGER National Polytechnic in Homa Bay County, had been stabbed and rushed to hospital.
Very sad indeed.
All right, that's the Daily Nation.
Also at the back, can see Arsenal. They say why DRC wants clubs to end Visit Rwanda's sponsorship. And this is a crisis in the DRC. DRC's foreign minister wants Arsenal, Bayern and PSG to end blood-stained, or what he called blood-stained deals during the ongoing war. You see, these teams always have an armband with the Visit Rwanda wordings. Kinshasa is questioning the morality of sponsorship deals by top European teams. So, sasa vita Goma inaingilia mpaka kwa timu za mpira ya wazungu. That's the Daily Nation. Aanza kupanda mlima telezi ni habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Anasema ni kampeni miezi miwili tangu apishwe naibu wa rais, hakuwa amewahi kukanyaga eneo la Mlima Kenya kwa shughuli ya kisiasa. Ufuasi wa Rais Ruto katika ukanda huo umeonekana kudidimia tangu amue Gachagua katika unaibu rais. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili. Wanaongezea wachanganuzi wasema ziara za Kindiki mlimani ni juhudi za rais kujaribu kurejesha ufuasi wake. Je, atafua dafu? Swali tu. Ndio habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Kitengela watatu, polisi bado wanatuandama. Bob Njagi na ndugu wawili wa Longonot wasema wanaishi kwa hofu. Vidokezo zaidi kwenye ukurasa huu wa mbele. Siasa za ethanol za tatiza Mumias. Ndugu wawili wa Rai wazozana kuhusu kemikali hiyo. Na mpango wa ODM kufifisha UDA Magharibi. Viongozi wa ODM watangaza kongamano kubwa la kuvumisha chama hicho mwezi huu, huku Ruto akiotea ufuasi zaidi. Je, kunani kwenye broad based government? Karua abadili jina la NAK Kenya. Sasa chama hicho kitaitwa People's Liberation Party, PLP, kwa lengo la kuvutia kizazi cha Gen Z. Lazima uipake rangi mpya ndio Gen Z waipende. Na
wataipenda kweli. Gen Z are ungovernable.
Gen Z walisema they are partyless, leaderless. Sijui kama wataangalia PLP wafikirie tofauti. Liverpool haikamatiki EPL tena. Vijana wa Slot wanapepeta Bournemouth na kufungua pengo la alama 9. Kwenye Arsenal wanafuata unyo kwa unyo pale nyuma. Kiteleza tu kidogo hivi. Sisi nao.
All right, the Star. Uhuru era COVID mess could cost state 8 billion Kenyan shillings, and vaccine supplies demanding 8.4 billion, including 4 doses that we never delivered. And that story is on page 4 to 5 of the Star. Besides the amount claimed on the doses, Kenyans also face 89 million shillings interest claim yearly for money that the Jubilee government committed to borrow but never withdrew from the lender. Afya House bureaucrats are scratching their heads over how to settle a COVID-19 vaccines tender debacle executed during President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration. I hope we all remember that COVID-19 scandal. Hiyo pesa yote ambayo ilipotea kule. And we're given here a COVID-19 Project 2024 audit, and they say projects underfunded by 597 million shillings affecting activities, 15 million shillings pending bills, distorting financial statements, 26 million withdrawn but not claimed, unmeasurable performance targets, management has yet to resolve past audit queries, project budget imbalanced by 701 million shillings, 2.7 million unutilized COVID-19 vaccine doses to be destroyed, 930 million accrued interest on unshipped vaccines, 89 million shillings annual fee on undrawn 17.9 billion shillings, and Exchequer failed to remit 100 million shillings counterpart funding. Now, who do we question? Is it the now Agriculture CS, who was now the then CS Health?
Interesting. Right. Called COVID millionaires.
COVID millionaires. Gachagua to show Mount Kenya direction to take ahead of 2027. He was to give direction yesterday, but he has pushed it to next week. He says amepata pressure kidogo and a lot of views. So
watu wanangojea, you see, just like when they did during the campaigns, and they kept on promising on this date, after 30 days I'll do this. Gachagua is still doing the same. After 14 days I'll do this. Then the date comes. Ngojeni kidogo. Give us more time. Typical.
All right. Clerics to face the music of a financial mess in county assemblies. That story is on page 7 of the Star. Kule chini we see Uganda gets Ebola vaccines as Kenya steps up border control. PSC flags 2,100 workers' salaries outside payroll. And Nyanza upbeat as region host investment summit. Remember, this is the conversation we'll be having today. This summit or this conference will take place from the 6th to 8th of this month.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the Star. Let's take a look at the cartoons this morning, and we start off with the one on the Daily Nation. And on the Daily Nation, we have an ark kama ile ya Noah. Noah's Ark, but hii Noah inaitwa MV reelection. Na kuna jamaa pale amevaa yellow and green and is painting the ark yellow, the UDA colors, seeking re-election. But the problem is that there's another gentleman here with a DO's kofia.
Yeah.
Anaichimba kuichimba hiyo arc. So wewe panga tu huko unapaka rangi lakini huku chini mimi natoboa tu. Najua mnaelewa nini huyo cartoonist anasema. That's the Daily Nation on the People Daily.
Ruto, we see a caricature there of President William Ruto, and I don't know what this is.
In a maze.
In a maze, yeah. And there is somebody here commenting and saying, Ruto too has been abducted by poor governance. She's asking the question. And we see end of term 1, there is nothing. Ruto's 2 years in office, almost nothing.
Yeah, because no one knows where he is.
Yeah.
Even end of term 1, where will it end? But people are asking, has he also been abducted by poor governance?
Yeah.
That's a People Daily cartoon. And finally, on the Standard, Political Street, the gentleman there, amebeba inaitwa nini ati
Party peddlers.
Peddlers. Oh, so guys who are just busy registering new political parties.
Yeah.
Kuna moja hapa inaitwa Kenya Quails Party. Remember the quails? Kuna Nduthi Party of Kenya, Chama cha Mende, Uchochezi Party of Kenya, Pro Reggae Party of Kenya, one. So Jama, the commentator says, is that season again, the political migration begins. Just in Martha Karua has rebranded a party. It's no longer Na Kenya, now it's PLP.
PLP. And you know, you said wanakuwa form easy parties, and then after elections, we don't see them anymore.
Actually, what they do, some people just go ahead and register political parties so that watu wakipoteza ticket kwa the main parties, they quickly rush and pay to buy tickets from them. So they wanaunda pesa. Yes. So these are just some of the discussions. Yes, many people reorganizing, re-strategizing ahead of 2027, all the way to the presidential level. These are just some of the discussions we'll be having with our panelists after the break. Philip Kisia, Danson Mungatana, and Dr. Barak Muluka will be in studio for that conversation. Do stand by.
Interact with us on our social media platforms, TV47 Kenya on Facebook and YouTube, TV47 News KE on X. My handle is _Odida.
And my X handle is @FredIndimuli.
Stay with us.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child. than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a
For the infamous Kitengela 3, Bob Njagi, Aslam Longton and Jamil Longton, their 32 days of being held incommunicado were pure horror. Their release was a major relief to them and their families. However, this relief appears to have soared in the weeks since their release. They say they have been subjected to constant surveillance and threats from people they believe to be security agents.
On January 5th, 2025 at 6 a.m., I noticed a black Subaru Outback with the registration number KDP 044J with tinted black windows, black tinted windows, trailing me during my morning run in Kitengela. For days, the car was parked near my workplace with 2 occupants, a man and a woman, inside at all times. The exact vehicle was also seen surveilling Jamil and Aslam Longton on multiple occasions.
Families of Kalani Mwema and late Justice Mutumwa, who were abducted in Mlolongo, also narrate their experience of numerous threatening calls and surveillance in their search for their kin.
Someone who claimed to be a police officer, he told me that my brother was in Lamu and would be released that night. However, he also wanted me to give this information to myself or risk my brother heading up in morgue.
Warning me to stop pursuing the case. The caller warned me that I would also be forcibly disappear. I soon realized I was being followed both on foot and vehicles, often at night.
As of now, the whereabouts of 2 of these Mlolongo 4 still remains unknown. Data from the Kenya Human Rights Commission shows that there have been 89 cases of enforced disappearance since last year.
The state is still pursuing us, perhaps because of the evidence that we have in regard to these forceful disappearances.
Kuna kazi kubwa zaidi ambayo Inspector General wa Police anayo katika hii nchi zaidi ya kuhakikisha kwamba sisi tuko hai na tuko salama.
They are now calling on the International Criminal Court ICC to intervene, investigate and prosecute those responsible for the enforced disappearance and killings. Sheila Chelangat for TV 47.
Go away. Matters abductions. It's the story on the front page of the Daily Nation. Abductions, the weak links, and on the front page of the Standard, killer squads are back. I say President William Ruto rode to power on the pledge that human rights and justice would be respected. However, 2 years down the line, the killing of abducted protesters shows that promise was merely words. Extrajudicial killings have returned, and in a puzzling manner. On the front page of the Daily Nation, the story is different because they talk about even the legal gaps. And listen to this. The story is on page 4. As Kenya grapples with increased cases of enforced disappearances, it is emerging that a lack of a specific law to tackle the crime is worsening an already dire situation. That's the gist of the story. Allow me to introduce my panelists this morning. Philip Kisia, leadership and governance expert, who has also served as town clerk of this great city of Nairobi. Karibu sana. Also have Danson Mugatana, Senator, Tana River County. Karibu. Barak Muluka will be joining us also for this conversation, but let's start from there because this matter simply refuses to go away. But it would appear that there is a problem. The Office of the Attorney General, with a key mandate to provide policy and administration of justice, in its submission to the National Assembly last year, admitted that there is no definition of the phrase enforced disappearance in Kenyan law. Yeah? There is no national legislation that criminalizes or penalizes enforced disappearances, and that there are no effective measures in place to prevent enforced disappearances. This is according to the Office of the Attorney General. Let's start with you, Bwana Philip Kisia. This could just be the problem. That even if these things are happening so publicly, this gap means that probably it will continue happening without consequence.
Good morning, Fred.
Good morning.
This is not even a matter of law. We are talking about our children, the future generation of this republic. So law or no laws, a government's cardinal responsibility is to ensure safety and security of its citizens. And I must underline, particularly children and women. A government that has failed, foot on its flat, to provide security for its people has no business governing. So let the government not hide about having legislation. I think this one is well covered, and Mr. Mugatana here, Senator Mugatana is here, will tell you that we are well covered in the Constitution. Okay? So those who are failing to do their duties and hoping that they can hide behind a certain law, I think are misplaced. And they need to be called out for who they are. You know, when children disappear, children, not even adults, not these fellows who are on the bench here. I think all of them, even Mugatana, has seen the 7th floor. Okay? But when children, Gen Z, millennials, who are our future, just disappearing like that, and the government is talking about some law, I think we've gone to the lowest that we can ever have gone. the fact still remains that children, our children, have disappeared, have been killed through extrajudicial means. We have National Intelligence Services, we have DCI, who are so well resourced. The job of DCI is to investigate crime. The job of NIS is to predict or to gather intelligence, to predict what is likely to happen in future and develop strategies to stop and collaborate with other law enforcement agencies to make sure that this country is safe and secure. So if you're telling us, Fred, that two institutions or all the law enforcement agencies who are so properly resourced are unable to do their jobs, it means either the occupants, as Rigiji said, the occupants are incompetent, or those who appointed them are extremely incompetent, are unable to deal with issues that touch on incompetencies.
Okay.
Now, in closing, Fred, it is even shameful that we have a government that is attempting to address regional issues and international issues, issues to do with DRC, issues to do with Haiti, where we have no business, and yet we have our own challenges here.
Right.
How can you go and deal with your neighbors' issues when your own home is burning?
Okay.
It's just shameful.
Senator Mungatana, another revelation is that this legal gap exists because Nairobi is yet to ratify the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances, which it signed in February of 6th, 2006, but it is yet to be ratified. Meaning that if we continue like this, yes, we may publicly denounce these acts of abductions and enforced disappearances, but we have no way of holding to account anyone who's actually perpetrating it.
Okay, you've raised the issue of treaties. I'm the head of delegation for the Pan-African Parliament. So those in Kenya, we joined the other 55 countries in South Africa to debate issues to do with Africa. And there are many, many conventions that have not been ratified. Not just by Kenya, but across the board. Countries can sign, but ratification is a process of parliament. So in Kenya, it has to go through National Assembly for it to be ratified. But the new constitution in Kenya also changed so that if Kenya commits itself to an international treaty, it becomes part of the law.
Automatically, without ratification.
It is supposed to be automatic. But ordinarily, again, that process is like so engraved within us that there is a demand that it has to pass through parliament. Because again, when it passes through parliament, there are things that, let me just say, they are put within the Kenyan context. But there is that provision in the constitution that we should adapt. When we adapt, it becomes part of the law. But for practical purposes, there is still need to process it through National Assembly and Senate. So in terms of delaying this signing or processing for it to be adapted, it cannot be a reason why there are abductions. In fact, it cannot explain that at all. However, you see, when the Office of the Attorney General is called before the Senate or before the National Assembly to explain an issue, they will give explanations in terms of their thinking on the best way forward. Maybe one of the things they are trying to say is that we need to strengthen the law that is around enforced disappearances and abductions and so on. But from where I sit, that cannot be a reason why we should not have action being taken against people who are suspected to be involved in abductions. Let me also say that as we stand today, if you take any person and willfully hold him against his will, then there is an offense that is committed right there. So even without this international convention, we still have enough law that will cover us in case people are able to identify those abductors and take them to court. The problem we are having, Fred, is that up to now, and I keep going back to the case of the Law Society and the ICJ, was it ICJ or Kenya Human Rights Commission? The problem we have is that those people who are supposed to have been abducted and then released, they don't record statements. They don't give leads to the investigations, investigative institutions as to where they were and what they were doing. So again, stories about people going dancing after abductions, they cloud the entire process. So what I would say is that besides all these drama, the sideshows, I think the processes, the legal processes ought to be followed. If you have been abducted, it's important for you, whether released, under any circumstances. Maybe you paid ransom, maybe you are released because maybe your abductors thought they're not gaining anything. The correct thing to do is to report this matter to your nearest police station. Okay. Is to insist on the investigations. That's the way to get the action done. Because up to now, Fred, since the discussions about abduction started, nobody has been arrested. Nobody has issued evidence to say, we think it is so and so and so.
Senator, I hear you. But there's a big concern here, and allow me to welcome Barak Muluka to the panel. Barak Muluka is a strategic communications advisor. Good morning, karibu sana.
Good morning.
The issue and the greatest concern now is that so far, no one has been held accountable for any single kidnapping or abduction. We've had cases where the courts even issue orders against the police IG. The acting police IG, Gilbert Masengeli, defied those orders without consequence. We've seen the IG currently and the DCI boss simply refuse to show up in court, finally show up, yet the bodies keep showing up and no one is being held accountable. So the question is, how will we hold anyone accountable if at all there's no legal provision for the same?
Thank you very much, Fred, and my fellow panelists. I think the gravity of the matters before us is such that we have got to speak with candor. We are not going to tiptoe around issues. We are not going to try to hide elephants behind rabbits. We should just speak with candor. Now, speaking with candor in these matters means that you cannot arrest yourself. Someone else can arrest you. Speaking with candor means that we must call a spade and say that it is the state that is behind these matters. That we have seen the Speaker of the Senate, where Senator Danson Mungatana serves, standing before Kenyans and telling us that these are children who have been mistaught or ill-taught or not taught by their parents, and telling us that such children must then be taught by the world, and that therefore the world is the state, and the teaching is the abduction, it's the disappearance, it's the torture, it's the killing of some of them. And we can only imagine what happens when they go to those places. Some of them who have been very bold, who have been speaking with openness, when they get back, they are completely cowed. We must imagine the kind of trauma that these people go through, such that when they come back, they are not able to as much as lift their lips to tell us what has happened. This is about the state. It's about a state that has gone rogue. It's about a government that has lost the script upon which it was elected. It's about a government that has lost the script of the promissory pronouncements that it made to this nation. It's not about the law. There are many other laws under which some of the things that are happening in this country today could be prosecuted. There are laws against battery. There are laws against forced imprisonment. There are laws against all manner of violence. It's the state. It is a state that has lost the script, and it's a state that must be called out and must be called to order.
Talking about the state, we have a case where we have a very senior ranking official of this administration calling out the same administration over these abductions, the CS Muturi. But we see the reaction from his colleagues is asking him to resign on an issue such as abductions, which are so publicly talked about. Where are we getting it wrong? Could that be an admission that, as when Muluka says, it is definitely the state that's behind this?
You know, and I agree with my senior brother, Barack. We cannot call a spoon a spade. And neither can we call a spade a spoon. We are going to call whatever it is. The issue is that there's something terribly wrong happening in our society, in our community, in our country called Kenya. But you must understand that when you are part of the King's Brigade, you never see anything going wrong because you are feeding from the king. You are feeding from the king's plate, and therefore you'll want to tell him what is palatable. You will never want to tell him things that will annoy him. So you see those characters who are around President William Ruto telling him things that he'll want to hear, okay? Because they are speaking not from their heads, but they are speaking from their tummies. We happen to have a few people like Justin Muturi, who has decided to separate a public office, because a public office is there today, it will not be there tomorrow. Your appointing authority can sack you even tomorrow or today, okay? But you cannot sack yourself as a parent. That title, that responsibility remains and follows you even up to the grave. So we must appreciate the honesty that has been exhibited by Justin Muturi. Justin Muturi has spoken as a parent. The pain a parent will feel when anything goes wrong with a child, okay? So he's being human. And my prayer would be that more people from the Kenya Kwanza government will start speaking out, because what they are enjoying is temporary. And you see, they must also understand that the Gen Z dealt with them on 25th of June, 2024. It does not mean that they are completely disappeared. It does not mean that they're feeling absolutely helpless. They could be reorganizing themselves. And when round 2 of the Gen Z comes, I don't know where people like Mungatana will hide. I can tell you, it will be a tsunami. They will all be cleared. Not only from where they operate from, but they'll be followed to where they hide.
Okay. And Senator Mungatana, I know you will very much want to respond to that, but allow us to take a break. You're watching Morning Cafe. We're taking a short break. We'll be right back to continue with this discussion.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
You're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break.
As leaders supporting the government continue to attack Public Service Cabinet Secretary Justin Muturi, urging him not to criticize the same government he's serving or else resign, allies of the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua have come forward to oppose the criticism directed at CS Muturi.
When Duale, you are talking about Muturi resigning, we know you are trying to preserve your kinsman, Nuruddin Haji. He has no moral authority to tell Justin Muturi to resign. That is to show that he does not understand the Constitution. Let him go and tell his boss, His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, to consult the Constitution if they are man enough.
Speaking at the Almighty God Church in Mathioya constituency, Murang'a County, the leaders condemned the increase of abduction cases in the country, stating that the government should be held accountable.
It is pointless, Mr. President, for you to pretend to be creating peace in DRC when your government is abducting and killing our children. It doesn't make sense.
Sisi tunaendelea kuambia serikali tumekataa vijana wetu kuuawa.
And as a woman, as a mother, I know the pain of giving birth to a child and then the next day they are dead. It is very painful.
On his part, Gachagua stated that he has been consulting with leaders from various regions and that soon he will provide his political move as we head to the 2027 elections.
Ndio nimueleze vile watu wameniambia hii, wanataka tupange namna hii, nitoe interim report, alafu niendelee kusikiza maoni ya kila mtu.
Rigathi Gachagua expressed his disappointment with the government in serving its people.
Sisi shida yetu na William Ruto na serikali ni ahadi za uongo. That is our problem. Mambo ya uongo, Bishop. Tuliahidi hawa watu wote wetu ya kwamba bottom up economic transformation agenda ni ya kuweka pesa kwa mfuko ya kila Mkenya. Instead, ile kidogo walikuwa nayo kwa mfuko, serikali ikaingia kwa mfuko ikato.
Josh Onsare, TV 47.
Yes, that story went on to talk about politics, but before we even get to the politics, we're still focusing on these issues of abductions and the kind of reactions we're seeing even in government. Senator, on this issue where other CSs are calling out their colleague Justin Muturi over his sentiments about the abductions, surely that could also paint the administration in bad light. This CS says that he has it in good information, that he has some information about who's behind the abductions, and then his colleagues call him out. What does that communicate to the Kenyans?
The let me just say this, JB. JB is a good friend of mine. And every time I'm trying to talk about him, I'm a bit restrained. But there's a problem with what he says and the position he holds. He can say what he wants to say if he was outside that position. Okay?
Are you saying there's a problem with a CS talking about abductions while in holding a cabinet position?
No, I'm saying you can simply say my son has been abducted, you know, and I am following it up. But you can't go back and start criticizing, hitting the same government, saying this, saying that, and the other, and you're still serving in the same government. I think the honorable thing, and I've said this before, if you're uncomfortable serving, you should leave. You should leave, and there's nothing new about that. And I've given examples. Martha Karua left, I left, Raila left many years ago, and life continues. You just hold what you want, what you believe, and leave it, okay? But that aside, the point I wanted to make, Fred, is that Kenyan ministers are appointed so that you can propagate a certain department that is yours. If you're the Minister for Defense, let us know you as the Minister for Defense. Let us see you tell about the troops in Kenya, the troops outside Kenya, what you're doing in the military, the promotions you're giving them, the welfare of the military, what you're doing to equip our military and make it a strong military within the region. If you are the Minister for Treasury, let us hear you about the treasury bills, the performance of the treasury bonds. Let us hear you about payments that are coming and are due for payment by the state. Let us hear you on KRA revenue collections. Are we hitting the targets? If you're the Minister for Health, let us see you talk and talk and talk, like the way Kagwe used to talk, and the other lady, she was called Dr. I forgot. Yeah? Mwangangi, that lady. You know, this is what I pray for our ministers. You know, if you are in charge of environment, let me see you hitting the streets with gumboots. Let me see you planting trees. Talk about, go to Mau Summit, come to the Delta in Tana River. Let us see you talk about, because the problem with our ministers, the problem with people forgetting the responsibility they are given, is that they just go back to the default, which is politics. So, you just see something that is now current, you know, you now keep talking about it, and you forget. J.B. Muturi is the head of public service, the Minister for Public Service. He should be telling us the ratios, who is employed, who is not getting employed, what is happening in the ministry. Have you ever heard him talk about such things? This is the problem I'm having with the whole thing. You have abdicated your duty. Every time we see you, you are talking about things that have nothing to do with your docket. You are not defending the papers and the policies in the cabinet because you are failing to attend cabinet meetings. Your department is suffering because they have issues to push that need to go to sub-cabinet committees. They need to go to full cabinet to get approval, probably go even to parliament for legislation. You don't turn up. You don't push your things. But every time we are hearing you, you're talking about issues unrelated to your ministry. I have a problem with that. I really have a problem with that. And I'm not only talking about JB. I'm saying our government, ministers, need to be seen talking about their issues. I was very happy the other day to see Migos, our Minister for Education, talking about education for like a whole hour. And he was using our national media, KBC. And they talked and answered all the questions from capitation, from university funding, from policies on JCC, JSS. I liked that, and that's what we should. And if this is where I'm coming from. I'm saying, if JB you feel very strongly that your issue is abduction, and that's the one thing you want to talk about, you don't want to attend cabinet, you don't want to do sub-cabinet, you don't want to deal with these matters, then it is proper for you to just take the leave.
And if we may
get
go,
yourself
if we
time,
take it from the Senator.
Fred, get yourself time, sit down and focus on what you want to do.
All right.
But this using public resources, you are in that office, you are doing all this, I think we are losing it.
Barack Moluka, kindly come into this, because if we're communicating anything from a government standpoint, one CS calling out the other because of the issue of abductions, that communicates something. What the Senator says about the issues in cabinet, that communicates something else as well. The Centre is not holding.
It's about a cabinet and an executive that is in shambles. If the appointing authority and the team around it, the rest of the team around it, is of the view that Cabinet Secretary Justin Muturi has run away from its collective position on abductions, then the appointing authority should dismiss him. They don't have to start shouting in the streets and from rooftops that he should resign. He is not the deputy president who cannot be dismissed by the appointing authority. So this is a lot of hogwash. And this country must be feared for when you find legislators speaking to the nation, telling the nation that a cabinet secretary is beholden to a collective responsibility situation on a burning question of the day that our youth are being abducted. Some of them are being found as body parts in body bags, in quarries. You're being told that if you do not want to support that position, then you should resign. We have got to fear very much for the country. We cannot run away from the burning questions of the day. If the crocodile is sick in the sea, and turtle comes out and tells us that crocodile is sick in the sea, that all is not well, then Parliament, the Senate, the National Assembly, they ought to stop all the other business that they have and discuss these matters as matters of national interest and point the way forward to the national executive and to the nation. But we operate in a very existential context where the king calls the shots and everybody toes the line. This matter is reaching a boiling point, and this matter must now be confronted, and every Kenyan of goodwill, every Kenyan of candor must come forth and address this matter. You are not going to be sitting there saying, this is my docket, that we are so compartmentalized that I cannot come out of this pigeonhole to speak to these matters of primary concern. If you are a cabinet secretary and your son gets abducted and you go to His Excellency the President and you tell His Excellency the President that my son has been abducted, and His Excellency lifts up the phone to call the director of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, and your son is released within a few hours, the DCI boss says, yes, we have him. It means that it is the government of Kenya, the state, the executive, state house, that is abducting our children. And we cannot expect anybody to justify that kind of.
Can I say something?
That kind of situation. We cannot
comment on it very briefly.
I think it's just good politics to paint the current government as a failure, as a current government which is not performing, which is what, that it is the State House that is actually ordering abductions. It is Ruto who wants to kill people.
He
doesn't need those votes.
It has
it's
ordered
such a
release
careless
of the
talk.
people
from people who we respect. You cannot just stand up and make accusations, accusations that are so baseless. Because you see, Law Society, wait, Fred, Law Society went to court, okay? And the court, in that case, by the time it was being prosecuted, six of the seven that they said habeas corpus, the order of habeas corpus had been made, had already been released. And in that court, the state prosecutor asked, can these people who have been released give statements so that we can pursue the abductors? Can they, or can the court allow us to arrest these people so that they give us information? Court says no. Have they recorded statements to give? Because we need to resolve this thing.
Because the issue is you just responded to him.
I always say that matters that are so serious like this should not be politicized.
Yet we are going by the words of CS JB Muturi. We have no reason to doubt him. And if at all he had lied, the president should hold him accountable.
Fred, I can understand where my good brother and neighbor Mugatana is coming from. And I've said, and I'm on record, and I repeat, he's one of the few sober minds that we have in this government. But you know, he is here to defend this government. Okay? We are not here, we are here to tell them where they probably have gone right, but we are going to speak about what is going on wrong in this country and in this government. When we sit here and Senator Mugatana tries to suggest that there's nothing happening, and yet just last week, the souls of Martin and Justice, the souls, poor souls of young children are gone. They were found in city mortuary, dead. This is not a story. This is real, Mr. Mugatana. Dead. Extrajudicially killed, murdered. These are our children. But let me say this. You know, Senator Mugatana talked about an area that I really love, performance management. And that ministers or cabinet secretaries should focus on the job that they have been given and do it and report. That's in order. But where you have a government where cabinet secretaries have been given a mandate and they're being micromanaged from State House, you don't expect them to say anything because they have nothing to report. Because the boss is one reporting on behalf of. I can give you an example. I'll give you a basic example, which is still live. When a whole president of the Republic of Kenya drives all the way to Mumias with so many state officers to Mumias to issue some fake bonus that doesn't exist, that is a job that should be left to a board of directors and management. But when you have a president doing that job, that is supposed to be not even done by a minister, it's a job that should be left to a board of directors and management. The president has taken over. What do you expect the ministers to do? Let me say this, and Fred. I think let us not blame the cabinet secretaries. Mr. Ruto appointed the first cabinet. In less than 2 years, he fired a number of them. We are again here that he's about to fire a number of them. He appointed principal secretaries. We are told he's about to fire a number of them. Could it be a case of an incompetent fellow appointing incompetent people, or competent people working under an incompetent person? I think that's the question that we must be asking ourselves. Okay? So let us not, blame game. And in private sector, where I have been for more than 2 decades, the person we put on the chopping board is not a subordinate. We put the head of that institution on the chopping board. And in this case, the person who should be on the chopping board is not a cabinet secretary. If there's failure, it is the head of state, the appointing authority, the vision holder. That is the man that we must put on the chopping board.
All right. Abductions, the weak links is a big headline on the front page of the Daily Nation. Killer squads back. The front page of the Standard, basically a headline that has refused to go away, matters abductions, and what happens next. Questions still linger. I want us to move to a different discussion that probably is not on our front pages, but is definitely on the front pages of the regional papers, and that's a crisis in Congo and how it affects us locally. We look at the Citizen from Tanzania. They talk about Tanzania in the crossfire amid raging DRC conflict. They talk about how it's affecting the business at the Dar es Salaam port. We look at the papers in Uganda, and I'm looking at the New Vision. Talks about Congo crisis, what next? And the refugee humanitarian crisis across the border from Rwanda in Uganda. This issue of the crisis in the Congo also affects Kenya in a way. Our president, holding that position of EAC chairperson, has then an enviable task of trying to bring people together. He's been successful or not, depending on your assessment. Issues diplomacy come into play as well. But there's a AUC elections coming in a matter of 2 weeks. And just how this Congo crisis will play into that also affects us in a way. Senator, because you took some time, allow me to go to Bwana Muluka, then I'll come back to you.
You can't give him, but I am equal to the task.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, let us appreciate the crisis in the Congo as a historical affair. It is a congenital problem that the DRC, as we call it today, was birthed with. It is a challenge that goes, in fact, way back to the 1800s, to the scramble for Africa, the partition of Africa, where the countries that we have on the continent today are a legacy of the colonial heritage. And it is a heritage that drew borders and shared out the continent among the so-called European powers of the 19th century, led, of course, by Belgium, King Leopold II, who was the convener of the conferences in Brussels. And afterwards, we had the Berlin Conference. And out of that, you have what we would call ethnicities being found on different sides of the same border. For example, here in Kenya, we have the Maasai in both Kenya and in Tanzania. We have the Luhya people in both Kenya and in Uganda. We have the Luo people in Kenya and Tanzania. We have got the Somali people on both sides of the border, and other people whom we call the Mijikenda here in Kenya. You find some of them in Tanzania and the like. And such situations need very careful management. Now, the problem within the DRC, therefore, is one where we have the people who are called Tutsi, in Rwanda. On the other side, they are called the Banyamulenge. The Banyamulenge are basically of the same ethnicity as the people that you find in Rwanda. And right from independence in 1960, this problem has been there, where successive regimes in the Congo or in Zaire have failed to recognize these people as their citizens, because the majority of them are on the other side of the border. And so they look at them as refugees whom they consider that they should go back home. And a succession of efforts has been made. I think one of the most sterling was by the late president of Tanzania, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, who attempted to explain to these people in DRC, the authorities in DRC, who are essentially the problem, that you cannot tell them to go back home. Back home where? This is where home always was for their great-great-great-great-grandparents and ancestors. So if you are telling them to go home, are you going to federate? Are they going to secede, go with that portion of the national territory, or what is going to happen? So that's the problem. When you tell these people to go to Rwanda, and quite often they break through the border when they are put under pressure and they end up in Rwanda, and the Rwandese government takes action to attempt to take them back to their country, which in itself is a problem because it falls in the docket of refoulement. They actually come to Rwanda as refugees, and therefore they should be treated there as refugees and enjoy all the rights that refugees are supposed to enjoy once they come across. So it is a challenge.
A very complex issue, definitely.
That is very complicated and very complex. But it's a challenge that requires people to put their heads soberly together.
And thank you, Bwana Muluka, for painting that general picture of the crisis and its genesis and where it is right now. It is definitely a complex issue. But now, Kenya's involvement in this problem is what now we are focusing on today. We saw our embassy in Kinshasa was burnt down, meaning that there's already perception there that Kenya probably is biased in one way or the other in the crisis in Congo. We saw President William Ruto in his position as EAC chairperson criticized for making a phone call to Emmanuel Macron about the same situation instead of, and he's a Pan-African, he is a self-confessed Pan-African. Many people are saying that was not a very Pan-African move for him.
Yeah, maybe before I make my comment, I just want to emphasize what Baraka said, that taking from where he said, where he reached, President Mobutu Sese Seko, the late president of Zaire, as it was then called, came up with a policy called Zairianization. And they were saying everything, Zairois, everyone must be
authentic.
Yes.
Yes.
So it was like, those of you who are not really ours are not welcome here. And that is the source of a whole people feeling we must fight for ourselves. And so there's a question of a very bad policy there, of discrimination that created a lot of bad feeling. Coming back to the issues of AUC, Fred, politics is very complicated. Let me just say that. From what I know, when we had last sessions at the Pan-African Parliament, we are 55 African countries, and there are some which are not going to vote because they have been suspended. I think about 6 of them. If you have a military coup or you have changed your government without following the normal democratic processes, you are not allowed. You are suspended automatically from the African Union. Therefore, you can't vote. So we have 48 countries that are going to vote in 2 weeks. Okay? Now, how many countries does Raila have? Our former Prime Minister, credit to him, credit to President Ruto, they have done a wonderful campaign so far. And he's the candidate to beat. The last time we had this session, everyone was saying the same thing. I remember I also moved a motion in that session asking that the candidates come to the Parliament of Africa to come and debate their policies. Yeah? Now, because our sessions are also not long, maximum 2 weeks, sometimes 7 days, that was not possible then. But I saw the African Union itself organize a virtual debate. And again, the experience and the issues that Raila was selling as a candidate were issues that a lot of Africa resonates with. And his age also is a plus, because he's able to talk to all these heads of states and push some policies. So from where I sit, the DRC crisis notwithstanding, Raila is a front candidate. So in terms of that politics, I think we have a very good chance that in 2 weeks' time, we will get that converted. But as to how successful we have been in handling the crisis in DRC, I think so far we have not. There's been a lot of issues. Some of them are bilateral, and then they become regional. You know, this country may not like DRC because of that. DRC may not be comfortable dealing with this other country because of this and the other. Now we have seen even South Africa sending their troops to the region, a situation that Rwanda is not comfortable with. Rwanda is a big stakeholder because the tribe that is involved there is also found in his country. So it is a very complex situation, but will it affect the results of AUC? That was your question. I think by and large, even if we lose 1 or 2 votes, it will not affect the results. I think by God's grace, Raila will be the next AUC chief.
Do you agree with that, Bonakesia? Because this crisis in the DRC is pulling in different countries, and people are re-looking at their relationship across the continent. I'm just bringing in the AUC because probably that's the most closest thing we have in terms of continental coming together. But definitely the President William Ruto's performance in this crisis has come into question, and I've seen some tweets you've been talking about. Do you feel that he has goofed enough to actually create a mess?
First of all, let me agree with my 2 other panelists, Senator Mungatana and my brother Barak. They have given a perfect historical context of the situation in DRC and the countries surrounding DRC. But I think there are more fundamental issues that we need to look at. And I also agree with Mugatana that Raila has run a good campaign, assisted by the Kenya Kwanza government. And we're all praying that he gets this particular position, because I believe that if Raila was probably the chairman of AU, this crisis would have been handled better, because of the experience he has, the age he has, and the personal relationships that he has developed over years with most heads of state in the region. But more fundamentally, there is the issue of how our president handled this matter. I felt embarrassed being a Kenyan. You know, this Uncle Tom's mentality needs to stop. This is an African problem that requires an African solution. When you have a head of state that is so proud of placing a call to some foreign fellow based in Europe or France, and even makes it public, it actually confirms that we are suffering from something, that we are not confident about ourselves. Because he should have consulted his peers in the region. But what made him, you know, place a call to Macron is probably something that he can explain to the lieutenants in Kenya Kwanza, so that next time they come here, they can explain to us that it was more important placing a call to Macron than calling Museveni, for example. You know, this idea of trying to get, you know, international visibility, you know, cannot work in modern day diplomacy. There are issues that can be dealt with. So there was no need for the president to show desperation and to try and gain some relevance in the global scene. This matter is serious. It requires proper handling. I can tell you that some of the heads of state from the region are very, very uncomfortable with that approach that the president has taken. And I'm hoping that he'll use the people in foreign service, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who are very well grounded on matters to do with diplomacy, so that they can tell him what to say, what to do, and not what to do. Because that was really the lowest that a president would have gone. An African challenge requires an African solution. Again, You know, Barack has, has said it very well. There are the issues of boundaries. There are people who are Rwandese, but in DRC. Just like in Kenya, there are Maasais who are in Kenya and also found in. These are artificial boundaries that were created by the colonialists. So it is even more disturbing when the president still has that colonial mentality that this problem can actually be solved by some white fellow sitting in France. The intervention required, in fact, if our president, advising President William Ruto, I would call for a meeting, not placing calls to Europeans. I would call for a meeting and look at Cyril Ramaphosa in the eye and ask him, Cyril, your forces are in South Africa, in DRC, as peacekeepers, not to try and extract minerals and send them to over to South Africa. I'll look at President Museveni and say, you are an able statesman. Please help Kagame and Tshisekedi to sort out this problem. These men, Cyril Ramaphosa, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, Paul Kagame, they all need to be put in a room and told them that this type of nonsense should not be happening in this day and age.
Okay.
And Barack said it very well. In fact, these issues were foreseen by Julius Kabarage Nyerere, and he spoke very well about it. He actually provided a way forward.
Okay.
So why can't we just go back to history and look at what Julius Kabarage Nyerere told us at that time?
Senator, I hope you just want to address the issue around president's actions.
Yes, just to inform that I have had the privilege of serving in Foreign Service as Assistant Minister Foreign Affairs. And I wanted to put the context of that phone call to contextualize so that people can understand, Kenyans listening to me. You know, it is true that presidents talk to each other the way Wanakisia has said, that you sit in a room and actually talk. I know that for a fact because when they go for AU, all of us, ministers, everybody is just away. There's a day where the presidents talk and they really tell of each other. The information we get that they speak like humans, not like presidents. And they speak freely and they're able to give directions on various issues that have been pending. Because normally things start from the ambassadors. The ambassadors are the permanent representatives at the AU. They come then to PSS, they come to ministers, and if they are not able to resolve, they come to the president. So the president sometimes they just sit, chase everybody away, and they talk to each other. So it is true that what Kisia is saying should happen, happens. Actually, it happens. And maybe for this East African crisis that we are having now, that is also required. But you know, sometimes a head of state can be invited for a meeting and he says, I'm not coming. I don't want to, if so-and-so is coming, I'm not coming. So then let me put the context of that phone call so that you can understand. Sometimes, you know, ask yourself, why didn't the president call the US, which is a very strong country? He didn't call China, which is a very strong country. He didn't call Russia, a very strong country. He didn't call the Great Britain, a very strong country, but instead he called France. Because sometimes a country has interest in country X, Y, Z and country A. Such monumental interests that, you know, for example, the biggest investor in that country is coming from this particular country. And they collect their revenue. Their equivalent of KRA depends on that country, that investor who is from France, for example. So maybe if he asks the President Macron, to encourage people to come, then maybe they will pull certain things and push people towards resolution. This is what happens in diplomacy. Sometimes you are not able to, you can't force any country to do anything, but sometimes you can push or encourage
behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes.
Yes, and that's a concern.
So I think that is the
issue was that this conversation was made public. The fact that President Ruto talked to President Macron.
You see, when there is a crisis in the family, you don't start by talking to strangers and outsiders. You call members of the family together. You start by caucusing with the different members of the family. You start developing a position, a sense of direction. And when you have established that there are external forces and interests that could be contributing to that situation, then you collectively agree how one or two of you or whatever number may reach out to those outsiders and those strangers as emissaries. You don't go out first to talk to those people and then come back to the family to start telling the family that I have unilaterally reached out to strangers so-and-so or outsiders so-and-so and spoken to them about the situation in Homestead ABC, which is a part of this family. And the senator is spot on when he says someone who pulls certain things. Those certain things that someone pulls are called strings. That France is deemed to be pulling strings, and strings are usually attached to objects called puppets. And so France is the puppeteer, and that the African nations are puppets. And we have seen that in recent times, the African countries that we call Francophone Africa are extremely unhappy with the former colonial master who dominates life in their countries, in their spaces, the politics, the economy, the social welfare. I have seen a clip I've yet to establish here, its authenticity. I don't want to believe that it is true that a French diplomat was being accosted in the streets in Kinshasa and being brutalized. If that happened, if that clip is actually giving us a truthful picture, then it's extremely unfortunate because things should never degenerate to that extent. However, even that the fact that someone could countenance making that kind of communication is an indication of the levels of tedium that Francophone Africa has reached. And so before you go out there, you see, diplomacy is not the same thing as foreign policy. They are different. And Mheshimiwa Dansan Mungatana knows that in practice better than I do. Foreign policy is much broader than diplomacy. Diplomacy, where we are now engaging in dialogical conversations, is just a part of it. And I do not know whether we have clearly defined our policy, our foreign policy here, how we relate to our immediate neighbors, how we relate to the continent, how we will approach crisis in the African context, how we will approach crisis further beyond our African continent, our African waters. So this is another instance of a goof within the foreign relations.
And there did quite a number under this administration.
Yes, from day one. Soon after the Bible came down, we began goofing in that space. And it calls upon us to work with technocrats, with professionals who understand those dockets that Mheshimiwa Danson Mungatana was talking about. They are professionals in government who quite often are not listened to, as the political coating at the top makes missteps and decides on doing certain things. So the bottom line for me is that this could, in point of fact, jeopardize the Honorable Raila Odinga's quest to become the next chair of the African Union Commission, because those Francophone African countries are still beholden to each other, not so much to the extent that they cow in to the former colonial master, but that they feel they have a certain responsibility to liberate themselves from that colonial master. And here is an outsider, for the manner of speaking, who is still going out causing around with that French colonial master and trying to define the way forward for Africa from that offshore perspective. But that said and done, I think that the Honorable Raila Odinga would be astute for AUC. I hope that, hope and pray that he gets elected, because we have issues in this country that need to be also prosecuted before the AUC. The abductions that we were talking about earlier on, the abject situation with regard to human rights, broadly speaking. And his being there would help to bring some of these things properly within searchlight.
Yes, the crisis in the Congo is definitely one that will continue dominating our headlines, not just in Kenya, but in the region and the whole continent. But definitely must admit that it comes at a rather awkward time for Kenya with regard to the AUC elections and how our diplomacy moves, or goofs, if I may call them that, would play into this election. But we have to wait for the next 2 weeks to see if at all that will happen. As we come to the end of this discussion, I want us to come back home and take a look at the political reorganization that's happening. With Raila Odinga going to the AUC, we see ODM suffering serious crisis of identity. On the front page of the Daily Nation, they talk about ODM plotting to counter Ruto's Western forays. It's the same ODM that is denying joining with UDA, yet members of ODM have declared that they're going to support, some members of ODM declaring they're going to support the UDA party and President William Ruto's re-election come 2027. When Kisia, we start with you. In your own assessment, things are changing very fast. And definitely your party, ODM, is totally confused. You must agree.
Fred, I think that's your understanding of what the situation. And I leave it at that. But I can tell you, ODM is not confused. There are few apples that are confused.
But suffering from an identity crisis?
ODM is known for what it is. ODM is the only party that has stood firm, that has fought for democracy, that has fought regimes that are corrupt, that is fighting this regime, that is killing our children through extrajudicial means. So that has not changed. What has changed? You see, when you have a father, and the father is about to exit the scene, there's jostling. This son wants to, take over, father's influence. This one wants to take over the father's wealth, and so on and so forth. So that is bound to happen. Because Raila, we are confident that he's going to AU, okay? So that's normal. But what you need to understand, that the ideals that ODM stood for yesterday, day before yesterday, 20 years ago, are still the same. There are only two groups that are emerging. There is one group, which includes me, people who are standing firm to protect our democracy and to fight for human rights and to fight for the people of Kenya. and we are the majority, then there are few apples, and you expect that in a family, a few of them who want to do business with the Kenya Kwanza government. Those characters are going nowhere. Those are the characters who are praying that Mzee doesn't get this seat, because their survival depends on Mzee. Mzee, exit Mzee, and we'll be left now to properly and squarely deal with this Kenya Kwanza government, because we are the party of the people. We are not the party of government. We are the party of the Kenyan people. That will never change, I can tell you. Otherwise, I would have left ODM, if that was the case. But now that we are about to close, and I know you don't give me any more time, and my good friend, Senator Mugatana, is here, who I respect very much. We are parents in the same school for many years. I want him to understand. Even if he doesn't want to listen to us, that our children have been killed. That just last week, the souls, poor souls of Martin and Justus were discovered dead. They were not killed by an ordinary Kenyan. They must have been killed by people who are known. And because we respect our security agencies, we also are praying and hoping that justice will be done. Finally, I'm also asking him, because he's a good man, to talk to our president. Because, this Uncle Tom's mentality needs to stop. When we are faced with a problem as African people, let us deal with it as Africans. We have the capacity, we can do it. Let us not go back to the colonial masters to look for help, because they will never help us. It is not to their interest to help Africans.
Thank you, Bwana Kesia. Back to the politics, and a lot of reorganization, parties forming. Your former party, NAK Kenya, has changed its name to PLP now, and the former deputy president is about to announce his party, and we can see UDA, of which you're now a member. You're a member of UDA, yes?
Correct.
Has swallowed another party, or rather merged with ANC to form UDA. Now, a lot is happening, definitely. Are you feeling a bit buzzed that so much is happening in as far as the politics is concerned? Or is it just the season and you're used to it?
I wanted you to understand that political parties, when you talk about political parties and their leadership, you're talking about presidential elections. You're talking about presidential politics, okay? So, how ODM is going to manage, how UDA is going to manage, and other political parties is because at party level, when you're talking about organizing political parties, you're talking about planning for re-election, okay? It's less on governorship, it's less on senatorship and down the road, because a lot of some of these politicians just need to be in the correct parties and get their ticket and convert their elections. So from where I sit, our party is organizing for the next general election. And we think that the political parties that we had signed a pre-election agreement, those pre-election agreements are still holding. Some of them we have signed post-election agreements, like the one you're referring to, in terms of coming together and trying to create this movement. Is they are all preparing for the next general election, for the presidential race. What other people are doing, they are fighting, they are confused, they don't have even a defined candidate, gives us a definite step ahead. So as they are talking and saying all manner of things, we are actually organizing ourselves. Our party, and I will give you an example. I was in Mandera on Saturday, and we went there with the Secretary General of UDA together with our leader of majority leader in the Senate, the Honorable Senator Aaron Cheruiyot. So what were we doing? We were opening a new political, a new party office, political party office, okay? So what are we saying? We are saying us, we are organizing ourselves and preparing, because we didn't do well in Mandera, the last general election. We are organizing ourselves. Some people may not like the fact that we are making post-election agreements. Some people may just want to say ill things, against us, but UDA is planning itself. And we may have some of the people on the other side who are interested in working with us. I want to encourage people that if you see a political party that has taken over a government and an administration that had been given a very negative outlook just 2 years ago by a very highly recognized agency like Moody's agency, that has lived over 100 years, changing the perspective of Kenya from negative to positive, pushing the indicators, saying that we are managing debt, the interests are going down, we have stabilized the currency. Yes. I want to encourage Kenyans, those who want to work with us, to come and join us. They should stop, wondering where to go. It's like a church. Let me just finish. Yeah. The churches that have wrangles, you don't want to go and be a worshiper there. Let the wrangles be finished, and they won't be finished. Okay. So come to our church, join us as we prepare this mega church for a big win.
Okay. It looks like yes. I must come in. There are post-election conspiracies. When people talk about unity, we must ask unity for what? And Mheshimiwa Mungatana knows that I'm the Secretary General of Umoja Summit Party. He was my member number 9. And the records still indicate he is. I think we have to find out what happened.
He has left quite a number of parties.
In that space.
I left Kenya as well.
He's a nomad,
yes.
As we all are. The issue is this, that ODM needs to get away from this issue of informal government, that one foot seems to be in government, another one seems to be out. But I'm encouraged that we still have men and women within ODM who don't believe in being bought at whatever price. UDA has lost the script, and they need to accept it. It doesn't matter that they have many conspirators who are willing to join them and to do the wrong things. They are talking about the economy, that they have paid debts. We don't understand what they mean when they say that they have paid debts. 2.5 years ago, they were telling us to give them 2 years, that at the end of 2 years, they would have paid all the debts and we would not borrow money from anyone anymore, that we would be spending our own money on everything, and that the cost of living would come down drastically. 2 years have come and gone, and we are not seeing that. We are seeing that we are having to tighten the belt more and more, and now the belt is even snapping. There's nothing that they have delivered. My friend Philip Kisia talked about His Excellency, the President, going to Western on a campaign tour that says nothing about the covenant that he signed with Musalia Mudavadi and with Moses Wetangula about the 1,000 kilometers of bitumen roads, about 3 brand new factories, about a restored Mumias, restored pan paper mills, restored I don't know what. He's going to do work which should be left for the local councillor or MCA, going to launch a transformer. I don't know how that transformer is going to transform life. Kenya Power and Lighting keeps bringing one transformer and taking away another one without even the local councillor having to come there to launch the transformer. Chepkube Market has been there with us since the days of Idi Amin in Uganda. So, as I said earlier on, we cannot hide elephants behind rabbits. Mm-hmm. That is something that needs to be addressed. And going forward, we invite you to come back to Umoja Summit Party, where you correctly belong, and stop bearing the burden of apologizing for a government that cannot be apologized for.
Right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And indeed, the Daily Nation, the political headline on the front page of the Daily Nation says, ODM is plotting to counter Ruto's Western forays. Just how exactly that is going to happen with a party that's already one foot in government.
Western Kenya, we have already taken. In fact, the people who are in NC are all coming to Umoja Summit Party.
ANC is in UDA now. Thank you so much, Dr. Barak Munduka, Strategic Communications Advisor, Danson Mungatana, Senator Tana River County, and Philip Kisia, Leadership and Governance Expert, was also served as a town clerk of this great city of Nairobi. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time at TV47 this morning on State of the Nation as we take a look at the big discussions, not just in Kenya, but in the region as well. After the break, Monday Blitz coming up. Fred Rocho and Shutterboy will be in studio alongside Innocent Mutiso, former Harambee Stars player. For all your weekend sports and analysis, do stand by after the break. My name is Fred Indemuli. Good morning.